Hello and welcome to Heather and Hops. My name is Katt, or Catherine, and this is my little space on the internet where I have documented my knitting journey from Project 1 through to now, where we have a fun little fibre community, or fibre flock. Ooh.
Or a herd.
Herd, yeah. Fibre herd of kind of like-minded makers. I hope this finds you well. If you're new, this might be slightly different. I say this anytime it's not just me talking to the camera about what I've been knitting on. But I hope you do have a cup of something. We both have coffee this morning. It's early on a Friday, which is unusual for us. I have a decaf flat white. Alex?
I have a little macchiato ready for some humble bragging, in my award-winning cup. So a few weeks ago I went to the London Coffee Festival and they had a potter's wheel set up and everyone was free to have a turn, and there was lots and lots of cups made, little espresso cups, and I made this one and it was voted second best, not quite the best but second best, so I won some coffee beans. There you go. And that was from 100 House Coffee Roastery in the UK.
It's a beautiful cup.
Yeah.
Well done.
Might be the first thing I've ever won in my life. Oh,
Cheers.
Second place here.
Can't think of another one. So if you don't know, this is Alex, my husband, and also knitter.
Correct.
And recently, or last month already, time is flying, Alex booked a week off work to come and do some shearing. This was the second time that I've done shearing. It's not at all like sheep shearing, it's quite different, but it's the second time that I've been to Whistlebare. If you don't know who Whistlebare are, hopefully we can do Whistlebare justice by explaining the situation, how it was, what we did. But yeah, Whistlebare is in Northumberland, near Berwick. That's where we went, and it was the middle of October-ish.
Yeah.
And the shearing happens twice a year, and both years I've done the October shearing. But this time was a bit different because obviously with the Rona being a thing, previously we didn't get much of a chance to sit and chat with Alice, but this time we did. We got to really
immerse ourselves in the ways of the goat farm, even if it was just for a little week. We really did, and it was a really great experience.
Very different, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And for me it's nice to be able to be outdoors that much. That was one of the perks, but also to see the process. I've always had this dream of doing fleece to garment, and it's kind of one step closer. Knowing about it and being part of the process is one step closer, and then being able to wear it and knit it is also. Don't know where we should begin. Should we talk about the yarn? Do we talk about the shearing first?
Don't you always talk about what you're wearing first? Or are you going to save that till the end?
Oh yeah. I don't know. We can talk about this. I guess then if we do get too warm, it's not too much of an issue. Because actually, even though the house has been freezing cold all week, this morning it's particularly warm. I'm not sure if that's because I treated us to making mince pies yesterday, so the oven actually went on. But
21 degrees in an unheated house.
Yeah. But I am wearing. I'll put in some footage probably.
I suppose you could say we are wearing.
We are wearing the Brackenside Pines. I believe Alice has gone with jumper jersey, and Brackenside Pines hat. And these are items that I kind of accidentally designed, inspired by a beautiful line of trees, which I'll remember to insert. Just opposite, so when we stayed at Alice's lovely farm, we stayed in a cabin and it overlooks beautiful fields, but in the distance there's this, I called it pines, I'm not actually sure, and I'd love to investigate what they're called. Actually, what species of breed of tree.
Who even knows the difference between a pine, a fir, spruce? Those sort of pointy Christmas trees.
Yeah. So I had this design and it kind of all just clicked. But this is something that Alice is selling kits for already, which is wild and scary, but I'm really happy with this as an outcome. I don't want to talk about it in the world's greatest detail, just because this is the first bit of the podcast knitting journal, but I knitted both of these in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the hats to match.
And another one.
Yeah, and another one. But I knitted them using both the Cheviot Marsh and the Yvering Bell base held together, and I'll talk about them a bit more towards the end, I think. And the colours that I've used for them both are on my Ravelry projects. There would be 8 colours to remember, and I'm not gonna do it and get it wrong. I know there's Castle's Keep, Heartland, Solitude, Will-o'-the-Wisp, In the Dark Dark Woods, Deep in the Forest, and Glacial Breeze. That's most of them. But yeah, so I thought it was a really fun project. The hat's knit at a tighter gauge than the jumper, but the jumper's knitted using approximately a 6.5mm needle, so it did actually fly really quickly. It's bottom up, which might be a bit intimidating for some, but as long as you keep an eye on your row gauge and refer to the details in the chart, the depth, you'll know exactly where you are and you can add or remove length accordingly. If I was to knit this one for you, I knitted this to the pattern. If I was to knit it for you personally, I would add probably another inch to the body, because the way I've designed it is to be just slightly cropped. It's not heavily, but it falls where I want my jumpers to fall, and I've graded that across the board, so for you it's just maybe a little bit short.
Yeah.
You could block it longer, really, but I don't want to.
Should you explain that this is not my jumper? Yes,
this one will be going up to Alice at Whistlebare and will live in the studio.
So this is a sample.
Yeah.
It's very nice though.
Don't spill your coffee.
Don't spill my coffee and don't get too attached.
Oh. Yeah, so I don't really know what else to say. It's got some new techniques that seem to be new to some people, be it the tubular cast on and bind off. It's been referred to as exo colourwork. I think that's a great name for it. It's like the skeleton on the outside. But I'm very pleased with it, and it makes me very anxious to share a garment pattern, since it does feel like it's my first proper garment. I've done my best I possibly can with grading, and there's some testers still knitting it up, but the pattern will be released really soon. I think it will be released through Whistlebare first, just for a little while, and then I will personally release it on Ko-Fi, which I'm very grateful for as a platform, and also Ravelry, for those that are interested in it at all. Do I need to say anything else? I covered it.
Yeah. Did you say what these ones were knitted in? Did I just turn off then?
Yvering Bell and Cheviot Marsh, yeah, I think so. But talk about that.
I'm getting a phone call.
I love this
Pause. Sorry for that little interlude. Work calls.
That's what we do.
It's what happens on my days off.
Should we start with the shearing?
Yeah, so I thought we'd just say a little bit about Whistlebare. I know most people probably might know Whistlebare already because you've spoke about them quite a bit. But if anyone doesn't know about Whistlebare, they are primarily a goat farm in the very most northern point of England. So very about 10 miles from the Scottish border, quite close to the eastern coast, near a town called Berwick, which is a very lovely town in Northumberland. They're not a huge farm, fairly big. I can't remember exactly how big they are. But in terms of the Angora goats, they potentially have the largest herd in the UK. And it is definitely a herd, not a flock of goats.
Yep, we learned that.
Potentially the biggest, but if not, certainly up there in one of the biggest. They're not super common breeds in the UK. I think most of Angora goats are found in South Africa at the moment, and the largest amounts of them. So Alice, the farmer, who is fantastic and does basically everything with the help of her sons and husband.
And lovely Tess. I have to say Tess.
And lovely Tess, who I think Tess helps less on the farm, but does everything in the business of Whistlebare, is from what I gather. But in terms of the actual farming duties, I think mainly Alice and her sons. They've got, I can't remember exactly, but about 120, 130 goats, ranging from the very little bouncy springy ones to the big male goats, which can be like upwards of 60 kilos, so quite hefty.
I think Hubble was about 90. He wasn't there. He's moved on to greener, not really greener pastures, but he'd moved on to a different farm.
And what's great about Alice's farm is they're primarily concerned with good welfare and also making the best possible fibre. What else can we say? So Angora goats, they need to be sheared twice a year, unlike sheep, which just need one shearing a year, and they
require a little bit more of a gentle approach when it comes to shearing.
Yeah.
Much more gentle approach.
Yeah.
And Alice definitely makes sure that happens by doing every single one herself.
Yeah. It's she has in the past had sheep shearers have a go, but she's found that if she wants the highest level of welfare, she needs to do it herself, and it also gives her a good chance to inspect every goat, make sure they're okay, and see firsthand which goats are producing the best fibre. And
she made quite a lot of notes as she went along.
Yeah, and it takes her a lot longer, even with our not quite expert help, a lot longer than it would take a professional sheep shearer to do it. Like, actually much longer, but I think
about 15 minutes per goat.
Yeah, we were averaging that or something like that. But it is the best way to do it, she's found, and it was really fun to help, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. One of the main reasons is that because they get sheared twice a year, they are kidding. You kidding? In the spring, so a lot of the mamas are pregnant, and you don't really want to be stressing them out or putting them down onto the ground and turning them up. So doing it herself and doing it the way she does it allows them to be kind of treated a little bit more delicately and how they should be treated.
Yeah. So in terms of what we were doing there, we were basically wrangling the goats and lifting them, turning them around,
helping keep them still.
We've got some footage. Alice has created her own method of securing them to a sort of raised platform, to stop them wriggling around too much, rather than like you would shear a sheep just on the floor where you flip it upside down. It's more it's a different approach. Also, a goat is sheared, the fleece comes off in sections, whereas a sheep's fleece comes off in all one big piece.
Yeah, it can do.
Just
that's how they aim. And Alice doesn't spend as much time finishing them as such. So some of them have cool little flares on and little tufts on their head.
Yeah.
That, you know.
That's again, it's a welfare thing. She doesn't need to go so close to the skin and more delicate areas, and
goats have not a nicer way of saying it, but they've got like stretchy, flappy bits that you have to be really, really careful with. And if you don't need to get so close and risk cutting, you shouldn't have to. It's quite, again, it's a welfare thing.
Not weaving in your ends.
Just that one. Shh, don't tell anyone. Yeah, when we sheared, if you haven't seen it before, what we did was bring them in a group into the pen closest to where the shearing was happening, and they'd come in one at a time. They'd be lifted onto the table and have half sheared, turn around, the second half sheared, and then they'd come down, and we would turn them, but very gently, I would say, and you take hold of their legs while Alice does their belly. But again, it's amazing how gentle it is. So that's how it is, and it did take about 15 minutes on average, a bit less, to do a goat, but that does give you 15 minutes of really looking at how well they're doing, you know, noticing any little details. And
the amount of fleece that you get off them it's crazy. I was really surprised. I didn't know what to expect going in there. Katt obviously had done this once before, but I was amazed at how big the sacks of fleece that we managed to fill up from these goats, these little fluffy little goats. And it's funny how how sad they look when they're first looking all naked.
And their little pink skin, but it you know, by the end of the week, a lot of them had curls starting to come back, didn't they?
Yeah.
And we were lucky with the weather for them because it was dry and fairly warm.
Wasn't too cold.
Yeah.
They choose to live in a big barn, but they do have access to a field basically all the time, a big field. But they're quite soft, so they choose to be inside.
They do choose to be inside. If the sun's not out, they're not out.
A bit like me, really.
It is quite amazing. They'll just sit there, and it was nice for you to see that firsthand too, because I think I came back so excited and like, you wouldn't believe it. They just want to hang out in the warm, and they're very they're family orientated, aren't they? They sit in their little families.
Yeah.
It's a bit sad when you've got the kids or the mama and they're separate for a bit, just for like the 15 minutes when they're being sheared, and they're sort of shouting at each other. And you're like, it's okay, it's okay.
Little wusses, aren't they, sometimes? Yeah, so really great experience. See where it all comes from. I think that's important for me and for you.
Yeah,
it was just interesting, isn't it?
It's interesting, and I think we quite like to know where things come from. In general, I get quite excited about the process and provenance, and I think you do too, and it ties into your work and what you do. So
fascinating. There is also other animals on Whistlebare, which we should do a shout out to.
Little Audrey.
Little Audrey, who is a huge Great Dane.
Massive.
One of the biggest dogs I've ever seen, actually.
I think her back comes up to my belly button.
Yeah.
Her head's a bit taller. Like, I'm not very tall anyway, but little Audrey makes me look like a hobbit.
Yeah. And some horses, lots of horses. Well, 5 or 6 horses.
Yeah.
And which Alice amazingly uses the horses to do field work. So almost everything that Alice could do with a tractor, she can also do with a horse. And these horses really can do it. It's amazing. The only thing they can't do is lift bales of hay above head height. That sort of thing where you need a truck.
A giraffe-sized horse.
Yeah, but amazing. She does. So if you look on her Instagram, you can often see her ploughing fields or pulling trailers and carts, and we even got a little ride in a horse and cart, didn't we?
We did. That was always something that I felt a bit strange about. Initially, if we're, I like to be honest, but you could see where she'd had a few days of not being able to take them out. She'd been so busy. Actually, they really wanted to go.
Yeah.
They wanted to get out and work on it, and the way they changed once they'd had their time doing what they do. It was quite amazing, because I'm a bit of a Jessie when it comes to life, and I'm like, oh no, if it wants to chill out, let it. But actually, it's just like a child, or
it's like a dog when you say walkies and it's suddenly its ears pricked up and it gets.
Yeah.
I think that horses, they're so powerful and so strong that to pull a tiny little cart like Alice has got, it probably feels like nothing to them.
It's like you carrying me up to bed. Funny.
But yeah, and also at Whistlebare there is a flock of Wensleydale sheep.
Yep. There's some others too. I actually can't remember off the top of my head.
No, I can only remember.
Shetland?
Yes. Could get it wrong.
Yeah.
There's definitely Wensleydales though, and they are the largest British sheep breed, I believe.
Yeah.
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 And they're brilliant.
They've got long. The fluff from afar and the way they look from afar is like slightly, much bigger mohair goats. They've got long wool and it's quite lustrous and a bit. I think it was once upon a time. It's a bit wrong, but it was referred to as poor man's silk. So the fibre really does behave like that. We are Audrey interrupted. Just gonna. You coming in? Come on. You sausage. You coming up? For those that don't know, this is little Audrey. She won't stay with us, but she's the best house mascot we could ask for. Okay, she's going to sit on the armchair just out of reach and probably swoosh me with her tail. Yeah. There are 2 other doggos on Whistlebare too. But they're very special, but they don't share the name with Audrey. What are you doing? Audrey's just adjusting the lighting for us. So whilst I don't know why I always say so, but whilst we were there, we did get to attend the knitting retreat, which I knew to expect knitting, but I didn't quite know what to expect fully, even though I think you must have read the knitting retreat page about 4 times. I tried to keep it. I do this with going places too. I'm a bit of a. I don't plan as much because I just want to experience, and sometimes that's to my own demise, but sometimes I feel like then you're just there and you do what feels right. But the knitting retreat Alice holds a few times a year, and I think the dates for next year will be up soon. And what happens is you show up, I think it's about 9:45 for a 10 o'clock start, and you will get to choose yarn for a project and a pattern, and I think the first skein of yarn is included in the price, and then after that you would have to purchase the yarn, but you get 10% off. And then once you've chosen, Tess will be a little angel and go and cake up the yarn for you so you can start knitting, and you will be taken off by Alice to go and see all the animals. We went for a little wander. I was fussing about picking colours for this, so I did miss a little bit of the wandering, but you got to go for the whole lot, didn't you?
Yeah. Went on a little tour.
And it's not like it's a long walk, but there's a lot to know and a lot to learn and listen about. Alice went through loads about keeping the goats, about keeping the horses, how she's bred them, why she's bred them the way she has, and the sheeps, and a little bit of, you get a bit of sneak peek kind of action if you are there, and I won't divulge that just in case, but there's some cool things on the horizon. And then once you've had a little wander and met all the animals, go back and probably have tea and cake. You start with tea and cake too, and any time I take a breath in this, just imagine tea and cake being inserted. And start knitting, cast on, have a chat.
More cake.
At lunch, more cake. We were treated very kindly to some honeycomb.
Oh yeah, also keep bees on the farm.
Yeah, Alice also has bees. And that was wonderful. That was really lush, so completely fresh.
Fresh from the hive.
And I really enjoyed the food actually, because it was, what was home cooked, and what wasn't was carefully thought about, I think.
Really nice local cheeses and things.
Yeah, and kind of everything catered for. Alice has a different diet to many herself, so she understands catering, and so that was really interesting and delicious. More tea and cake, more knitting, and it was really, for me personally, about the experience that I loved was, I think, certain companies in certain places attract a certain kind of person, but everyone was so different, but all there with that one like bond almost of fibre. But seeing, I think there was 12 of us in total, 13 of us, everyone had a different knitting style, and seeing that, and maybe it's because I've not really done real life knit nights, and I know a lot of people that knit continental and on circulars, like there was probably 6 or 7 different styles of knitting happening in just the space of 2 separate tables. And yeah, what did you enjoy most about it?
Cake.
Oh, that
yeah, it was just it was nice. It's a really nice studio there. If you're ever going through Northumberland, you can call up and see if the studio's open, and it is open on a certain day of the week. Wednesday
and Friday.
Wednesday and Friday.
It will be open.
So if you're ever in Northumberland, you can drop in on those days. Do check in advance.
Just drop a text and say, I'm going to be half an hour, are you open or around? And Alice will come out in her wellies or something fancy and open up.
Yeah, it's a really nice space, and
sofas in a log burner.
Yeah, and they do other events there throughout the year, so keep an eye on that. I think it's especially if you're kind of localish to there, people were travelling mainly from Newcastle and Edinburgh, kind of anywhere in between. Yeah, check that out. No technical issues.
Hey, we just waffled a bit, but that's good. I think it's good to talk about it, and talking about it at a slower pace if I can. I don't know, I'm a bit scatterbrained at the moment, but I feel like what's happened is I've done this, like the universe is just doing this. And I was doing this before and doing more and more, and my brain was getting more, and now I'm slowly starting to come back together and be a bit grounded. So hopefully next week I'm going to be like, whoa, she's on fire. Well, hopefully not literally, but yeah, I don't know if what else we should discuss. It's always good to talk about the yarn, but is it worth mentioning? talking about
Yeah.
it a bit more? Because we both bought a bit of yarn.
We did.
My other skeins are packed away because I don't know why they are. But I ended up buying 2 skeins of Cheviot Marsh, and these are the they were slightly different, dyed slightly different, so they were sold off a little bit cheaper, which I think they're a beautiful colour, which is why I got them. And I kind of can't decide what they're going to be yet. I feel like they should be a shawl because I have some mohair that it's just there, so I'm going to grab it. If you can believe it, I bought these 1 year apart without having this with me.
Wow. They do match.
Yeah, it's like perfect combination. So I think they're going to either be well, I don't think they're going to be held together. I feel like they're going to be together in a project, but I could hold it together, and I could probably just about get a Varpu out of it, but as if I need another one of those. The Varpu is a jumper that I've knitted 7 or 8 times now, but it is gorgeous. And the Cheviot Marsh, I'll insert a bit of a closer footage, is 100% lamb's wool and a blend of Romney Marsh and Romney Cheviot thread that are reared in the Cheviot Hills. I like this base a lot. For me it's soft, for some people it's a little bit rustic. I say rustic, woolly, a bit toothy. I like it because it's sticky.
We're wearing it, aren't we?
Yeah, and it's
super soft against my skin right now. Oh, this is blended, knitted together with the mohair though.
So I find that it gives a wonderful stitch definition, and I don't really want to be talking about my projects and designs, but the Spring Intentions is something that I designed with this in mind. It gives a great stitch definition, good structure, and takes colour really nicely too. I like it. It does have a tiny bit of a halo, but yeah, that's why I really like this base. It is very, very, very different from the Yvering Bell, which
I bought.
Alex bought the most special orange hat one.
So I've got 2 orange hats already, but I feel like I need another one, especially for winter. So the idea was half mohair, Yvering Bell, half Cheviot Marsh. I'm going to hold them together and knit myself another orange hat.
I'm really excited for that.
I'm really excited to wear it.
So the Yvering Bell is 80% Whistlebare's Wensleydale mohair, 80% Whistlebare's mohair, and 20% Whistlebare's Wensleydale. And the thing about that is I don't want to get into too much detail because I don't know nearly enough and I would love to learn more, but if you purchase from the wool board, they tend to put things into big bulk bags of certain like staple length or characteristics of fibre, so you're not necessarily guaranteed. So if you're trying to get Wensleydale, you might be after an X amount of staple length, so you'll tend to be buying it for that, and there's a chance you won't be getting Wensleydale.
That was my understanding too.
Yeah, so that's quite interesting. But and again, I think it's easy to show items. The mohair, the Yvering Bell base, I love because it does have a gentle halo. Again, it's mohair. It's soft. I find this ridiculously soft. I don't know many people would find this prickly, but people might. And obviously there's some people that are allergic to mohair, which I'm very grateful that I'm not. But it gives a lovely drape. Obviously it's got the luster and the halo that mohair gives and the Wensleydale gives, but it's got a nice drape to it. So you can see here, I have an example of this same jumper knitted in a wool that's more similar to Cheviot Marsh, and it's retained, it's quite structured and quite big. The cowl sits right up against my neck, but this one, the cowl just flops around, and it's like a gentle hug rather than a supportive hug, if that makes sense. And this is the Land Girl jumper by Whistlebare. It's their own pattern, but so this provides quite a lot of drape and luster and halo. And actually, what I've found is, unlike a lot of the mohair, the brushed mohair that I've knitted with, this hasn't peeled. Like, can you see any? I'm amazed. I've not once used a gleamer on this. There's no like the little nubbles.
Oh yeah.
So it's really, I think where it's so fine, the fibre itself is so fine, it hasn't. And Alice did say that it would. She said that what tends to happen is it will pill for the first couple of wears or first time, and then gleam it, and after that it should totally be fine. But I haven't, and I say this all the time, but I am such a kid when it comes to clothing, like rolling around and insisting on painting and whatever in it, and this has been kept really nicely. So the reason that this is knitted using both is that I wanted it to have both structure and drape. I wanted it to hold itself enough, but also have a nice sort of, so it supports itself, but it's kind of like a little bit relaxed, no?
Yeah.
So the stitch definition on the colour work is good, but also there's a little bit of fuzz. So that's why I used both, because I wanted to embrace both properties of the yarn. And it is a luxurious piece. It's not something that I'd ever be able to knit multiple times. This is obviously Alice's. This is going back to Alice. I think we'll still have to send the hat to. But this yarn was kindly gifted to me to knit the sample. And then I offered, like a mad woman, to knit the second sample. And the other yarn that Alice has at the moment, and I feel like it should get a mention, is the Cuthbert sock, which Alice hasn't had in stock for a long time, and that's a whole different story, that it is what it is. But the Cuthbert sock is actually the Yvering Bow. I think it's the DK but spun with a higher twist kind of thing. So it's been done like that to be made for socks, which means that it's a no nylon sock yarn. I do have a skein of it, and that will be, I have one more pair of socks that I'm knitting as of today that are nylon free. I cast on a pair. And then the Cuthbert sock will be my next yarn choice for my no nylon socks. It's a wonderful fibre, and I know this already because I have a pair of mohair socks that I've been living in, and they do not look aged at all. But mohair, one of the main reasons anyway, is it's a strong fibre, but it's so fine that bacteria kind of can't stick to it, so they smell good and they feel fresh, don't they, even if you've worn them.
Yeah, when I wear mohair socks, I always feel like when you put your foot in a shoe with a mohair sock, it feels like, you know, that time you get a fresh brand new pair of socks. They always kind of, I mean, I haven't worn them to death yet, but after maybe 20 or so wears of these socks, they feel like new socks every single time I put my foot in a shoe. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Team gold.
Team gold. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to trying it as a base. Actually, you are.
I am.
You are. Alex has got his own knitting shelf here. He does. In fact, he's got two. And I may as well do a little sneaky peek. And this is actually what you cast on whilst we were at the knitting retreat.
I'm embarrassed that I haven't got any favour on it though.
Aw, you've done great. You can
I'm going to reel you in.
Go on. Focus. Focus on my face.
Too close.
I know, I'm not. I was trying to get it to focus. There you go. Alex is knitting the Meandering Monk socks, I believe they're called.
Yeah.
And it's the Eider Duck colourway. Alex actually was very kindly given this for the knitting retreat, weren't you? Let's hope you can get 2 socks out of it.
Yeah.
But if they're for you, you might want them a bit longer. But you're not going to be too far until you do.
Also, I've always been way more concerned about the texture of socks than the colour. So even if I have to finish them in a different colour or one's a different colour to the other one,
That's true.
I match for texture, not colour.
Actually, if you could all see Alex's sock drawer, you'd laugh because none of them are paired to the colours at all. They are just by texture and what sort of length they And you do have too many different types, don't you? You complain about that a little bit. But yeah, I think that's... I don't know. I feel like there was so much information that we learnt and so much I'd love to share, but I'm a bit wobbly brained.
There's lots of footage that we
Yeah.
can put
We
in.
will put in a lot of footage. And hopefully that will provide you with maybe a couple of giggles, I can't remember, but a lot of, hopefully a little while of peace and like you got to come along on the adventure with us. Because it was an adventure, and it is a shame that we couldn't record straight away or from there while it was still more fresh, but oh, we've been busy. Oh, we have a full weekend with only one commitment, which is potentially board games, which is a good commitment to have after. Films and the sofa and little Audrey. Yeah, I think that's probably all. Next week will be a normal episode, which is quite exciting for me because I feel like I've done loads. Maybe I haven't, maybe I'll get there and be like, whoops. But then after that, I am hoping to do a reflection on my no-nylon socks. Might need you to give me some notes on some of your socks.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it. Coming up. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sitting down with us and, you know, listening to us talk about our little adventure. If there is anything you'd like to know, feel free to ask. I will do my best to either respond here or in a future podcast episode, knitting journal episode. Anything you'd like to add?
Stroke a dog, stroke a cat. Listen to the birds.
Yeah, listen to the birds.
Look at the stars.
Be excellent to each other. Good public service announcement. Yeah, no, but please look after yourselves. I hope whatever project you're working on, if you're not working on any, I've had a couple of people ask lately how to learn to knit and to do videos on knitting garments. If that's interesting, I'm happy to look at doing a video, not necessarily teaching step-by-step knitting, but pointing in the right direction or different directions for ways to learn or projects to maybe start with. That's something that I've been pondering because I've been asked, but I don't want to re-record videos that, you know, have been done so many times and so well. So if that's useful to share, then I will, but if not, obviously. Anyway, stop waffling. Thank you so much for being here. Be excellent to each other and don't forget to love each other, and I hope to see you again very soon. Enjoy the goats.
If you saw me staring over that way during this whole video, Katt's baked mince pies, and I couldn't take my eyes off them. Oh.
young goat mohair. So she was still producing the it's much warmer. I don't have to use so many heat lamps, and we can get them out on the grass really quickly. So all in all, May is just much better. The only reason to sit earlier is if you show your goats, because then you'll keep really well grown. Such a lovely hen. She lives here, and she used to have 9 friends. About 50 females. And we will breed them with 3 different males because for the bloodlines keep them in the best health. We breed predominantly for quality of mohair, but equally for health of the animal, because there's no point in growing mohair if the animal is hot. But that means we are his which means, yes, if you look amongst our goats, there's all sorts of unruly horns going on. You see those ones over there? They're called flyaway horns. They're a big fault in the show ring. You want nice round horns like these. But we're not worried about horns. Horns are not important. Horns are. And actually, Blossom, who I was talking about earlier, she was our matriarch goat, and she had terrible flyaway horns, which is why so many of ours got flyaway horns. But she had won every goat show in the UK pretty much before she came to us. So horns are evidently only so important. But she died aged 14 last year, and she was still producing young goat mohair. So she was still producing the kind of mohair you would expect a 2 or 3 year old to produce. So that's why there were a lot of flyaway horns here, because we have been introducing Blossom's bloodline hard and fast. Our first buck, we had 2 bucks initially, Havelock, who came from Devon, and Alf, who was the first kid born here and was Blossom's son. Blossom always used the kid first when she was younger. She was the matriarch, and she led the way with everything. And I don't know who the matriarch is now. They're still a bit confused, I think, to be honest. Nobody has stepped up to fill the role the way Blossom did. But Blossom had big shoes to fill. She's quite a goat. You will get 2 or 3 times the vegetation growth if you manage it like that, rather than just letting them into the whole area to selectively graze. So that is why we do it. All the grass that we grow, it's a really broad range of different grasses and legumes. She pulls something very happily. On Tuesday, well, you want me to do it again? Why would I do that? As I say, she's too bright, she gets bored. Thank you. Anyway, we're working on it, and I may or may not be able to get her pulling. And at the bottom of the farm, and I just thought if anybody would like to chew.
I'd love to try some.
Very good.
You're living locally, or not necessarily that locally,
Yeah.
it's definitely worth going to one
It's a
of
nice
the.
day out.
It's a nice day out.
And we met some amazing people.
Yeah. Really, really interesting group of people. Everyone's got their own stories.
Yeah, what's the geologist.
Don't ask me to remember names because I'm terrible with names.
But there was from a geologist to an art history expert through to someone that's gone from working in business and finance and moving out into the yarn world, which is exciting. And her project I will try to find and talk about in the future, because I think it's not quite released yet, or at least not in a big way, and it's something that I really want to get behind and support. She's talking about Scottish yarn, and I just think she was going to just do, as it's just a lovely project, and it was really nice to sit, not for just like an hour or two, but for a good 4, 5, 6 hours with people and just chat and connect about fibre, which is absolutely amazing. But not just fibre. We spoke about tea and coffee because we do that. Food. Learned a bit about the Renaissance period and art. A little bit about the hills around. Not that I can share that, because a lot of it was just in awe, listening, and not able to quite share once more. It was a lovely day. Very much enjoyed it. And I didn't feel overwhelmed. Usually if I'm in a group of people for a long period of time, I can get a little bit, my introvertedness needs a break, but actually if you really wanted to, you could sit off in the corner and sit on the sofa, but it was just so easygoing that I didn't feel that way.